You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
Welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered Special Edition, the future of black media. Yesterday, Byron Allen, of course, he's the founder and CEO of Entertainment Studios, announced that he is launching a massive lawsuit against the advertising industry. He contends that black-owned media has been completely shut out of the dollars, getting a paltry amount, and that black-owned media deserves more. He joins us now on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Byron, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you, Roland. It's really great to be back with you. So it's just good to hear your voice, and hopefully you're staying safe. This is an issue,
absolutely, here in Atlanta. This is an issue that we have been talking about for quite some time. I've spent any number of years in black-owned media, running through black newspapers, working at TV One, major broadcasting cable network. I can go on and on and on, Savoy Magazine and Vanguard Media. And this has been the fundamental issue that African Americans have faced. In fact, Brett Pulley, in his book, The $1 Billion Bentley, Unauthorized Biography of Robert Johnson and BET, he writes in that book, when Viacom bought BET, they discovered that BET was getting $1,500 for a 30-second ad, that MTV was getting $8,000. If BET had been getting its proper value for advertising, BET wouldn't have been sold for $3.3 billion. They probably would have been sold for $10 billion. So people get excited about, oh my God, look how much they sold BET for. But the point is, that was at a black discount.
Yeah, listen, I'm a big fan of Bob Johnson. And he's remarkable. He's a remarkable entrepreneur. But yes, he had to deal with the black economic agenda, as we all do. There's America is committing economic genocide against us. And listen, I was fortunate enough to meet and know Coretta Scott King. And I've talked about this before. I had acquired the rights to take her book and produce a movie, a mini-series about her life with Martin Luther King, because I wanted to look at Martin Luther King through her eyes. And she was the true queen of America. And she said to me, Byron, as black people, we have four major challenges. Number one, end slavery. And number two, end Jim Crow, which I think was more damaging than slavery, because when we were slaves, we were perceived as assets, and they protected us because we were assets. And the moment we became free, we became a liability, and that's when they started the genocide, and they started to murder us and lynch us and incarcerate us. And she said, number three, achieve civil rights. And then she choked up. And she said, in number four, the real reason they killed my Martin, achieve economic inclusion. She said, they didn't kill my Martin, Byron, over the speech, I Have a Dream. They killed my Martin over the speech, The Other America, the speech he gave at Stanford University, which is an amazing speech, and every American should know it. And basically the speech he said, in that speech, he says there are two Americas. One America has opportunity and access to capital and education and businesses and on and on and on, an abundance of opportunity. The other America does not. And two Americas will not survive. We need to have one America. And the great prophet Martin Luther King Jr. taught us over 50 years ago, over a half a century, we must achieve one America. And we haven't done it. And we're watching this great country have serious challenges because we haven't done that and fulfilled that promise to ourselves and that potential. So when she told me about it, I said, listen, obviously you and Martin have done an enormous amount. The fourth and final chapter, we will deal with that. Let us handle that. I will focus on that. And she said to me, she was very sweet. She said, you're smart enough to do it, Byron, but you need to know something. And I said, what's that? She said, they will come after you. And I said, I understand, but they've been coming after me since my black ass was born. Now they have a good reason. And it was something that always stuck with me, her sharing with me how she saw it and how Martin saw it, that we had these 4 unbelievable challenges as Black people. And what I've always said is the greatest trade deficit is the trade deficit between white corporate America and Black America. And we have to correct that trade deficit. And that is what is fueling the economic genocide that you see in our Black community. And the way we have to correct that is we have to take action. We can't just complain about it. We can't moan about it. We have to take action. So what I decided to do was use the Civil Rights Act of 1866, Section 1981, and I filed $40 billion worth of lawsuits. And those $40 billion worth of lawsuits against the MVPDs, the satellite and telco companies and the cable companies, they were resolved. They were settled. And I used that Civil Rights Act because it's the very first Civil Rights Act put on the books in America. And that Civil Rights Act was put on the books in the year of 1866 to protect the newly freed slaves, to make sure that we had economic inclusion in government contracting and commercial contracting, because they knew there were people out there that would make sure that we were excluded. And for a while it worked shortly after emancipation, and we were very prosperous. And that prosperity is what ignited and created the Jim Crow movement, because they saw how well we were doing, and then that's when they brought in the genocide. So these lawsuits, they work. I'm the first to come along and invest millions of dollars and use them to the tune of $40 billion. And I've told Madison Avenue, I took this last year during this pandemic, and I sat with, on Zoom calls, all of the ad agencies and their holding companies and a lot of the corporations. And I said, listen, you guys spend about $170 billion a year advertising, $170 billion a year. And Black people get close to zero. And that doesn't work. And we have to bring some economic reciprocity to this equation. And we have to close this trade deficit between white corporate America and Black America. So we, as Black people, have every right to ask for 14% of your budget to go to Black-owned media, not targeted, Black-owned. But I'm not asking for economic parity today. Today, I'm just asking for economic inclusion, a minimum. And I do want you to hear the word, a minimum of 2% to go to Black-owned media. I need an ocean of capital to the tune of $3.4 billion to come into our communities so we can fuel and we can fund Black-owned media, because that capital will start to create thousands and thousands of Bob Johnsons and Byron Allens or whoever, because now you've positioned Black America to succeed. And right now, Black America is positioned to fail as it relates to Black-owned media. And you can count on one hand Black-owned media. And you shouldn't be able to say in 1921 that Byron Allen is the only Black person in America that owns an ABC, an NBC, a CBS, or a Fox affiliate. That Byron Allen is the only Black man in America that owns a widely distributed general market cable network, the Weather Channel in America. I happen to have one of the largest privately held media companies in the world, Black or white. But that shouldn't be the case. I shouldn't be the one and only in 2021. And so I know what I went through to get here, and I know it would be very challenging for anyone to follow in my footsteps. I'm trying to make sure it's infinitely easier for our people to achieve this level of success, because I can tell you by design, it is created to make sure that we are excluded. And so when I told Madison Avenue I'm going to start suing them, what I did is I have a staff of litigators who only work for me. It's a small law firm pretty much. And their job is to go out and sue corporations that do not do business with Black America. This is what I told Coretta Scott King that we would deal with. Our people, this generation, will deal with the fourth and final chapter. We will make sure that we achieve economic inclusion. And the best way to do that is through litigation. Because for white corporate America, Litigation is kryptonite. That makes them crumble. When they're looking down the barrel of a $20 billion lawsuit, they get real religious. Because what they try and do is drop those 4 D's on us. When, first they try and dismiss us when we say, hey, there's a problem, you're not supporting Black-owned media. And they just dismiss you. And then we get a little louder. And then they discredit you. Oh, look at Roland. He's getting a little louder. Look at that angry Black man. And then once they get to that second D, they move on to that third D because you get even more upset. They demonize you. And once they demonize you, they're in check with their so-called Christian selves, and they move on to that fourth and inevitable D. They destroy you. And that is what they did with all of our great leaders. They hit us with the 4 Ds. They dismiss, they discredit, they demonize, and they destroy. And I had to figure out the matrix that we were in and how do we get out of that matrix. And what I came up with is I said, I'm gonna use litigation. You can't dismiss it because it's your platform. I'm using your platform. I'm using your courtrooms. You can't discredit it. You created that. You can't demonize it. I'm not upset. I'm not angry. I'm just saying there's a dispute. And when you resolve disputes peacefully, you go through a legal process. And you can't demonize it and you can't destroy it. And it just has its life. And so I found that the best way to deal with this is the process that I've taken, which is legal action. I have to tell you, I'll be 60 years old next month. And the only thing I regret is not doing this 20 or 30 years ago, because it stops the analysis, the paralysis. It stops with what I find with white corporate America and institutionalized racism in white corporate America is that when it comes time to do business with Black America, they get amnesia, they get confused, they don't know what we're talking about, they don't know how to figure it out, they don't know who you are. Go for it.
In fact, Byron, when you talked about doing business with Black America, which is one of the points that I keep making as well, you don't do business with one. We often see in other sectors, like, okay, you know what, we'll deal with one, when in reality, we're talking about a collective. I had someone who once said, it's really lonely at the top. And the sister said, well, that's your fault because you didn't bring anybody else with you. What is happening now is that these industries said, okay, you know what? And I'm not picking on BET, but it was like, okay, there's BET. Okay, we'll support BET. And you go, but wait a minute. Yeah. It's not just BET. There are other networks. There are digital properties. There are newspapers.
That's right.
Radio.
That's right.
So it's not just one. And so what they do is they want us fighting amongst ourselves. Then they want us fight with Latinos when they're sitting over there with 95% of annual $150 billion being spent every year.
And what I've said is I've said, look, this is a problem in the Asian community, the Hispanic community, with women and with gays. But my lawyers have said, well, Byron, you're not gay, you're not Asian, you're not Latino, you're not a woman. You don't have standing. You're Black, and you can only speak as a Black person. But what I would say to all my brothers and sisters in all communities, that you too should be holding the system accountable. And what I've also said, it's important for Black people to understand you're Black, you're Negro, you're colored, whatever decade you want to go to. But whatever you do, don't ever get labeled a minority. Because minority is not defined as you. Minority is defined as white women. And the money that they spend with white women, they will say, look at my minority record. I'm amazing with minorities.
Yeah. Well, that's precisely why when we're meeting with the companies, I'm Vice President Digital for the National Association of Black Journalists. I said, I'm here for the B in NABJ, Black people. That's who I'm here for.
That's right.
I said, now, y'all can go meet the other groups, and for Black people, just a couple of more questions, because I'm going to go to Rich Dennis next, with Essence Ventures.
I love Rich. Rich is my brother. I love Rich. Rich is amazing.
So, one of these ad agencies just announced they're having this equity up front. And we saw it. My team responded by saying, well, who the hell did y'all invite? Because we certainly didn't get an invitation. But here's the thing. The reason they're having this is because they don't invite us to the upfront where they spend most of the money. So here's what happened.
So here's what happened. So I got on the phone, the Zoom call, and I called everybody up, and I said, you know, when I sued one of the big corporations, one of the big media companies, you know, one of the big cable operators for $20 billion, the chairman said to me, Byron, after we settled everything, he said, I got to tell you something. I was really hurt and disappointed that I read about this $20 billion lawsuit in the Wall Street Journal and everywhere in New York Times. He goes, I wish you had called me before you had taken this legal action. And I said, you know what? Next time I'm going to do that. So what I did is I took the last year to call everybody and said, I'm being gracious here, but I want you to know you're in violation of this Civil Rights Act, and I'm going to hold you accountable. There's no scenario in which you can spend $170 billion and a Roland Martin, $170 billion a year and a Roland Martin and others like him are struggling. You're going to put money in our economy the way we put money in your economy. So out of those conversations, IPG decided to have this black up front. I called our good brother Todd Brown, who we both love, and I made sure that you were on the list and you were invited. That was nothing more than you just fell between the cracks. But I can assure you, my brother, you are invited. One of the big reasons why I'm doing it is because of folks just like you. So you are front row. You don't need to worry about that. And a lot of others just like you and I. So this problem will be corrected. I'm just the first Negro to come along in 400 years to invest millions of dollars of my own money and go all the way to the Supreme Court to deal with it. And I didn't even break sweat after 6 years and tens of millions of dollars. And they looked at me and they just said, this guy is not going to let up. They're right. I'm trained to go a million rounds, and I will not even huff or puff. There's nothing more important than correcting the trade deficit between white corporate America and black America. And it's not just in advertising. We're going to do this throughout the entire ecosystem. This is how we're going to truly get our people out of chains, out of bondage. Because right now, black America is still on a plantation. It's just a sophisticated plantation with minimum wages where you can barely keep your nose above water, where we are positioned to fail. They kill us in the schoolroom to make sure we don't get a proper education. They kill us in the boardroom to make sure we don't get proper economic inclusion. They kill us in the courtroom by making sure we're getting 30% longer sentences than our white counterparts committing the same crime long before they choke us to death in the streets. The war is in the schoolroom to make sure we're properly educated. The war is in the boardroom to make sure we have true economic inclusion. And the war is in the courtroom to make sure we have real justice. Not only justice in the legal sense and criminal justice, but also economic inclusion. And we're using justice to make sure we get our seat at the table. And we have a seat at the table. And black-owned is everything. And I had a white guy ask me a great question. He said to me, why is black-owned important and not targeted? And I said, because you have a daughter. My daughter was just born. And I said, your daughter is white. My daughter is black. Let me ask you something. Can I control your daughter's image and how she's produced and how she's depicted and how the world sees her? And can I control her self-esteem? Are you comfortable with that? Are you okay with that? He said, no. I said, why do you think I would feel any differently about you as it relates to my beautiful black daughter? And now that my beautiful black daughter is here, I'm not asking for a seat at the table. I'm taking one. So scoot over. And that's what's happening. Well, I'm basically telling white corporate America, scoot over. That's what's happening. And I'm having a great time.
Well, we're going to stay on top of this and keep covering this and put that pressure on about Byron Allen. I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate you.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have, you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it. please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.